Fantastic. Okay,
All right.
let's make sure we get Sarah back. But
Yeah.
before we jump into that, I just want to do a couple housekeeping items. So everyone should already be on mute. But we want to utilize the chat function. So please, if you have any questions along the way, throw it into the chat. We will look it up after the fact and have Sarabeth be able to answer some of those questions. And one of the most important things is it's our chapter president's birthday today. Brandon Wynn, happy birthday to you. Thank you for leading the New York City chapter and all the efforts that you do, and the rest of the chapter leaders that have popped on today. I really appreciate you all. So let's make sure we got Sarah back on.
Thank you.
Bear
Thank you,
with me.
Sarah.
You're very welcome.
Call out right here.
Okay, we got Sarah back on. So we just switched her settings here. She should be all set. So Brandon, I will pass it over to you if you want to kick us off.
Cool. Yeah. So welcome, everyone. We're thrilled to have you here today and to join today's webinar, SaaS in the Age of Generative AI, Navigating the Boom. Our speaker needs little introduction, but I'll do it anyway. Sarabeth is a trailblazing tech entrepreneur, a Forbes 30 under 30 honoree, and a proud RPI alum. She's best known as the technical co-founder of HelloPrenup, which is the first digital prenup platform to land a deal on Shark Tank, and it redefines how couples plan for their future. She's a product-focused software engineer turned startup founder. She brings deep expertise in high-margin business models and real-world applications of generative AI, which is what we're talking about today. And she advises small and large startups on scaling smart, not just fast, by leveraging AI to simplify systems and build products that actually work. In this session, Sarabeth will take us behind the scenes of launching and growing a SaaS company in today's AI-driven landscape. She'll share battle-tested strategies, honest lessons, and a few laughs as she breaks down how to future-proof products without falling into the AI hype train. Get ready for an inspiring and insightful and refreshing conversation.
Hi, everybody. Just a heads up, I don't think this will take the full hour, by no means. We're going to go through a lot of different parts of how businesses are getting impacted by generative AI, but there's still so much to talk about. So I tried to scope it down just to a few categories that I think business owners should keep an eye on at the top of their list when it comes to how AI is evolving so quickly and how it's impacting software these days. So that's just a heads up there. And I would be happy to share these slides as well as a little worksheet for business owners in terms of how to, reevaluate their business models on a regular basis without getting overwhelmed by the constant generative AI news. So thank you so much, everyone. It's lovely seeing a bunch of RPI alumni here. I was alumni of 2015/2016, graduated 1 quarter early. So I guess I identify as a 15-16 cusp. But it's so lovely to see everyone here. I'm actually based out of the Seattle area, like a lot of RPI alumni likely are. After graduating RPI, I went to work at Microsoft, and they treated me very well. And so after Microsoft, I went to a nonprofit where I was actually teaching software engineering at a men's prison out in Monroe, Washington. And while I was there, I was teaching about 25 currently incarcerated persons how to do web development, how to start a software engineering career. Since then, many of them have continued their educations or actually been released from prison and now have jobs. That was a really fulfilling time in my life. After working at that nonprofit, I went to work at a startup out in Seattle that focused on helping improve the technical interviewing experience, which I bet a lot of engineers on this call have gone through. It's a very rigorous process that a lot of engineering teams don't have capacity to conduct themselves. And then during COVID, I actually took some time off from working, and that's when I started my entrepreneurship journey. And so I started my entrepreneurship journey around 2020 when my now husband and I, who actually also went to RPI, we officially got engaged. And I have always been a very financially minded person, especially from a women's financial independence perspective. I've always had a pretty positive view of talking about finances transparently when it comes to relationships. And so when I was taking time off from work, we'd gotten engaged, and it was kind of this perfect storm of variables that all pointed to looking at, how can I help couples plan their financial futures together? And so I started to do research, and really all these legal tech platforms like LegalZoom were not offering prenuptial agreements. And so that was kind of the beginning to my very whirlwind journey of entrepreneurship. So I decided I would build a prenuptial agreement platform. I found my co-founder online. She's actually a divorce attorney out of Boston. And within 3 months, we were in the Shark Tank, actually pitching to the judges, Mark Cuban, Kevin O'Leary. And it really was a crazy period of my life where I was focusing on building the software while also being hyper-focused about our value propositions, our pitch, and having a very solid business model. And so through that experience of working at HelloPrenup for about 4 years, I've really become passionate about bridging the divide between software engineers and understanding the business and the finances around what it takes to actually build software that generates revenue and sales. So all that today has kind of gotten me here to where I am. So in this talk, we are going to be focusing on how generative AI is changing the SaaS landscape. Owner's perspective, this is really a fundamental shift in a lot of aspects of the business. And let's see. Can we go to the next slide? All right, awesome. So before we really dive into the meat of this talk, I wanted to define some of these acronyms. So SaaS, or software as a service, refers to any cloud-based software you can pay for online. So TurboTax, Salesforce, Dropbox, they all have a problem that they are seeking to solve for their customers. And they really have a defined scenario with a fairly predetermined input and output. Generative AI, or Gen AI, stands for generative AI, a type of artificial intelligence that creates new content like text, images, music, or code. Those different forms of content are referred to as different modals or multimodal output that generative AI is able to output. OpenAI's ChatGPT is a prime example of generative AI, and it's the most popular one. So generative AI tools like ChatGPT are powered by what is called large language models. The acronym for that is an LLM. This LLM is really a machine learning or natural language processing technology that's been trained on billions of data points. They basically scraped the entire internet and used that data to train their models to understand correlations between words. And all of this really allows generative AI to output very human-like responses. And so it's a very, very powerful but scary technology. So high level, SaaS provides value through software. Gen AI creates content, code, insights. These two things sound pretty different. So how do SaaS and Gen AI intersect? So companies that integrate Gen AI features into their offerings can deliver faster, smarter, and more personalized experiences. But Gen AI doesn't just stop at a few AI features that you add to your existing SaaS platform. Right now, in my opinion, we're living through one of the biggest shifts in the software industry since the invention of the cloud. And some might say the biggest shift since the invention of the internet itself. So most SaaS founders I've talked to, and in my experience, I've gone through all these stages as well, feel very excited, overwhelmed, and really terrified about how Gen AI is going to impact their SaaS businesses today, 6 months from now, 2 years from now. So what we're going to do is look into how this affects SaaS businesses, whether they're existing businesses or businesses that haven't launched yet. Great. So here is the next slide. So why are SaaS founders so terrified? Gen AI looks at data, can find correlations, create new content very similar to it. Well, it's because that Gen AI has shifted the weights and the strategies needed to sustain a typical SaaS business. So you might have seen this diagram before. This is what's referred to as the business model canvas. I actually first learned of this business model canvas at an entrepreneurship class at RPI taught by Clint Ballinger. So this basically outlines the core components of a successful business in a way more concise manner than the traditional 20+ page business model that might have been used in the 80s or the 90s. So generative AI hasn't changed or removed these core building blocks of a business per se, but it's changed the strategies that you need to conduct within them in order to really have a solid grounding in each of these categories in your business model. So I'm going to be discussing only a few of these sections. Let me just read them out just in case this is too small for everyone to read. So the components of the business model are the problem, the solution, key metrics, unique value proposition, unfair advantage, channels, customer segments, cost structure, and revenue streams. So we're going to be only discussing how Gen AI is impacting the problem, solution, channels, and revenue. But it does have impacts in different parts of the business model for sure. But just in terms of scoping this conversation down, that's what we're going to chat about. Please ignore the numbers on that business model. All right, awesome. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so let's start with the problem. So luckily, this section of the business model hasn't changed in hundreds, if not thousands of years since the existence of a business transaction. Good businesses solve real painful problems, but the best businesses solve a founder's personally experienced problem. For me, that was building a prenuptial agreement platform that was collaborative, easy to understand, fast, and affordable. And so all of those personal experiences kind of went into me building the software that I would have wanted to exist to solve my problem. So while Gen AI or ChatGPT can help brainstorm business ideas with you, which is really fun, and I would highly recommend doing that, nothing really replaces real world experience. So your personal experience with a problem at hand will help you outcompete the hundreds of fully AI generated business models of which their founders probably have no personal connection to the business idea that ChatGPT just like spit out and presented to them. So real world domain knowledge is still a very important factor in the world of Gen AI. Next, the importance of customer interviews remains the same. So Gen AI can scrape blogs, scan Reddit threads, summarize huge chunks of information for you, but it can't hold a human conversation. There's probably a company out there that's trying to automate the customer interview experience, but I would argue that automating away the customer discovery or interview is going to seriously hurt your business prospects of success because AI simply can't read between the lines. It can't observe or really truly understand human emotion when you're talking to a customer about a problem that's deeply affected them. So while your competitors are talking to LLMs, talk to your customers and actually dig into the root of the problem for them. Thirdly, AI doesn't have a wallet. You can ask ChatGPT, what should I sell my product for? You can tell it, look at my competitors and then tell me how should I position my pricing in comparison to my competitors? But still to this day, the only true test of demand or success for your business is putting it out there and seeing whether customers are willing to pay for your solution. So you have to ask the market, you have to sell. And when it comes to validation and pre-sales, I think a strategy that I'm seeing more and more of is people trying to basically put a wait list up, see what demand is from that wait list, and get your first few paying customers and manually get that output or that solution for your customers. That's a really fast way to validate whether the problem that your business is solving is actually painful enough for people to pay you money for it. So the big takeaway for the problems in the world of Gen AI is that Gen AI can give you ideas galore, but only you as the entrepreneur can validate them. So the differentiators between a human and a ChatGPT is your empathy, your credibility, and your grit still matter in a lot of ways. And in some ways, I think keeping those things in mind when you are focused on the problem that you're solving is going to be one of the only unfair advantages out there in the world of SaaS businesses. All right, so let's go to the next slide here. All right, so on the business model, we're going to talk about the solution that you're going to build. So Gen AI tools like Copilot or Cursor.ai, if you're a software engineer on this call, have made building software or writing code functions faster than ever. You simply don't need a large engineering team or millions of dollars in venture capital funding to build a software solution. So the barrier is no longer, can you build it? It's no longer, it's, do you understand the problem well enough to build the right thing? So this is kind of a shift in dynamics, right? So because from 2010 or earlier to 2020, building the solution, being a technical co-founder was a really valuable space to be in. But now with prototyping tools getting better, with AI-powered development environments, getting larger context windows or being able to understand larger software engineering systems, you need fewer engineers, you need fewer venture capital dollars, and you can launch faster than ever. So from 2010 to 2020, being the first software solution out there was a big differentiator between you and your competition. But now being the first solution out there is really not that big of a business moat. It doesn't really scare away your competitors anymore. So the most important thing is, again, being focused on providing the best solution rather than getting your software out there quickly, because there will be more and more software cloning technologies out there, and development tools will get better and better. So as the market gets more and more populated by competitors, you just need to be focused on understanding your customer, and improving your product faster than your competitors as well. So AI actually highlights another important business fundamental of really scoping down and focusing on one problem at a time. So with generative AI, the quality of your data matters more than the quantity. So software solutions that are scoped to a highly specific use case and contain or are starting to collect proprietary data are really set to thrive in the world of generative AI. So instead of saying something like, my software is set to revolutionize the world of the medical industry, you need to think in a more tightly scoped use case and say, we specialize in labeling oncology imaging scans using our proprietary labeled data set. So this focus is especially critical for highly risk averse businesses like finance or the medical industry, where accuracy is everything and data is not a public good. So if you work in those spaces, you need to be keeping your data as safe as possible and also collecting as much data as possible about how customers are interacting with your software solution. As well, customer expectations for the solution that you're providing in your SaaS businesses have gotten higher and higher. So you really need to be providing the highest quality solution that also integrates AI in parts of the products that customers might find repetitive or annoying. So AI basically used to be, this big shiny object where you'd say, wow, I can't believe you have this really cool machine learning technology. You must have a really big engineering team. And that was really seen as a differentiator. But now AI is so easy to plug and play into your SaaS solution that it is no longer an optional integration. It is a required integration, because your customers will notice if you don't have AI capabilities, and your future or current competitors will also notice. And it's almost a signal to the market that your business is not very forward thinking if you're not integrating AI into the most painful parts of your software solution. So from a high level, Gen AI has democratized access to development tools, making building software easier than ever. That being said, software engineering is still really an art and a science, but it can improve your engineers' output by multiples. But the solution that you're building still needs to maintain your customers' trust. It still needs to contain judgment about the problem that it's solving, and the importance of niching down on the solution that you're providing is even more critical in today's day and age of Gen AI. All right, so the next slide here. All right, so you have identified a very painful problem that people are willing to pay for. You've built a software solution that is beautiful and is really easy to interact with some cool AI integrations. But we need to talk about, how are your customers finding you? This, in my opinion, is one of the biggest shifts that generative AI has had on the world of SaaS. So Google search used to be the front page of the internet. Now it's ChatGPT, it's Claude, it's Gemini. The verbiage of Google it has now become, let me ask ChatGPT. And that really changes everything for many, many online businesses, including my own business. And this was really a signal to us that this is not just a cool AI feature. This is changing the landscape of the internet. Organic search traffic is already down, actually 15 to 25% for a lot of SaaS companies. And 81% of Gen Z prefers AI tooling over traditional search. So your potential customers aren't searching, they're prompting AI technology to give them their answers. So if your product or your business solution is not known by those Gen AI technologies, you and your business basically don't exist anymore. It used to be that if you weren't on the front page of Google, you didn't exist on the internet's landscape. But now if ChatGPT doesn't know about you, then you're really going to be in a tough spot, if not now or in the next 6 months to a year. So what can you do? So when I talk about Google knowing about your business, that is referred to as search engine optimization, or SEO. So the shift is from search engine based SEO to LLM based content, right? That the LLM can basically ingest when it scrapes the internet for content and understands and then outputs to its user base. So the blogs and content that your business may have written, those pieces of information still matter, but it's important to assess how the analytics on your website have been impacted over the last couple of years, and to change your content writing strategy so that it's not just it's not just focused on how Google's going to parse that information, but it's focused on how are LLMs parsing information and surfacing it to customers. So you need to write content that focuses on FAQs, or frequently asked questions, product comparisons, and clearly structured data, because these bite-sized, easily parsable snippets of text are more likely to get scraped and surface in AI answers. So when you're writing blogs or articles, think in structured, scannable, and specific use cases. So an example of how someone may find you is they might ask, what is the best tool for video editing software for Instagram Reels? And so that is a way that customers are kind of asking questions instead of searching. And so that kind of leads into my next point here of prompt testing your brand. So when it comes to understanding whether a generative AI tool even knows your business exists, that comes down to asking ChatGPT about your products. So you need to ask it about your product. You need to ask questions that your customers are probably asking themselves. You need to ask it to compare your business to your competitors. And really, this is it's really going to show you a lot about what the AI knows about your business. If it doesn't know about your business at all, then you have a lot of work to do. Your discovery in LLMs is broken. If it has a negative response about your brand, then you're in an even worse emergency case. So if you have negative reviews on Trustpilot or Reddit and it pulls those in, then you really need to be fixing that problem before more and more customers move from search to Gen AI prompting. So search is kind of on the decline. Google search is really on the decline, but actually YouTube or YouTube videos are still really thriving. Shockingly, YouTube is actually the second most visited website globally with 2.7 billion monthly active users. And also, interestingly, LLMs or Gen AI are actually indexing the video transcripts. So they're converting the speech to text, and then they're trying to parse that video information about what you're talking about. And those video results can actually show up as embedded responses on various generative AI tools, even if your blog doesn't show up. And so this is great to build video content because it's going to be really evergreen content that's good for at least a very long time to get the word out about your business. But it also has a higher likelihood of being shown in generative AI responses because the competition for video content is a lot lower than the competition for just text-based content. So I really think that investing time in YouTube videos is a worthwhile pursuit, especially if you are going to have a real human in front of the YouTube videos. That's going to be a differentiator when it comes to AI-generated videos or avatars. So having an actual human in your videos, getting that out in front of your potential customers is going to be an increased value. The next item that I wanted to highlight on just how Gen AI has impacted marketing and the channel discovery is getting basically completely circumventing the search or the LLM kind of strategy and going completely community-led. So whether that is posting on platforms like Substack, Reddit, Medium, or investing time in building a social media brand, these are all kind of very low-cost ways of getting potential early customers to know about your product. And in a lot of ways, interacting with the community is a differentiator for a lot of brands. As AI really exponentially takes over real estate space on the internet, I think we're already seeing the backlash of people starting to crave authenticity in this AI really regurgitated content world. And so I think we're going to see even more of that backlash in the next 6 months. And so when it comes to investing time in communities, people are going to see social media interactions as a lot more authentic. And I would bet, I mean, depending on what products you're selling, you could have a higher likelihood of conversion if they like the brand that you have built up in a very authentic way. And so on that topic of really community-led, posting on various blogging channels, in May of 2024, so not that long ago, Reddit and OpenAI made a licensing deal that allows OpenAI unfettered access to scrape Reddit posts. And so at first, the deal seemed like a really weird partnership. but it really only serves to underscore the importance of human-generated content when it comes to credibility. And Reddit has actually put a lot of investment into removing AI-generated content so that it can be seen as a source of human-generated authentic content. And so the takeaway here on how Gen AI has impacted channels is that search is really dying. And so getting traffic to your website, if you're relying on traditional search engine optimization strategies, is very quickly changing. You still want to be building content, but you want to be building content that is more likely to get ingested and surfaced in an LLM. You need to put your, you need to be or act in the shoes of your potential customers and how they're really trying to solve their problem when it comes to them talking to ChatGPT versus Googling and trying to read blogs or assessing various landing pages. Because in the end, the customers are really talking to ChatGPT. They're looking to get an answer. That answer may only surface 3 different businesses or 3 different software solutions. And a fascinating phenomenon is that people are trusting those responses a lot more than they may have trusted the first 3 results of a Google search, because AI has gotten really good at reasoning. So it's even more critical that LLMs know that you exist, that you're on that top 3 suggestions or really answers to your customer solutions. And so trying to focus on how customers are interacting with Gen AI, putting investment into building authentic community communications, and creating differentiated content like human-led YouTube videos is, in my opinion, more safe channels in this world of generative AI. All right, so the next slide here. All right, so we've done problem solution, got customers to know that you exist. So how do you make money? So the typical SaaS pricing model is subscriptions. Subscription fatigue is getting higher and higher. Really, customers are tired of monthly fees for products that they're not using on a regular basis. So in seemingly perfect timing, more and more businesses that are integrating Gen AI capabilities into their products are shifting from a subscription-based model to a per task or a usage-based pricing. So Salesforce is actually a really fascinating and kind of the go-to case study of how Gen AI is impacting enterprise SaaS. In May 2024, Salesforce's stock dropped 20% in a single day when one of their partner companies switched to an AI-first alternative integration strategy. But then just a few months later, Salesforce's stock surged back up 28% above its yearly high after they announced their own AI-focused products. And that product is called Agentforce. So I just wanted to highlight, the volatility in the stock market when it comes to publicly traded SaaS businesses. Investors are keeping a close eye on how SaaS businesses handle Gen AI threats. And they're really having these knee-jerk reactions where SaaS businesses, if they are not iterating quickly enough, their stock is likely to tank as investor sentiment kind of decreases very quickly these days. So the AI product that they launched is called Agentforce. And so Agentforce is basically an AI tool that will have client conversations on your behalf. And so instead of a subscription model for that product, they're charging $2 per client conversation. Another example of a SaaS company that is charging per task is Intercom. So Intercom is a very popular customer service tool. They charge $1 per AI resolved support ticket. So for businesses that sell expensive products or have really small teams, maybe they don't have a full-time customer service person or they don't have a full-time salesperson, these per usage prices might seem like a really great value, but for businesses with low pricing or maybe high volume on customer support tickets, these usage-based pricing models can really push customers out of your products. So from a high-level view, these kind of utility-based pricing models sound great because you only use you only pay for what you use, but it also introduces complexity on both sides. So for the consumer of generative AI, this can lead to unpredictable costs. So if you're a SaaS business owner and you're integrating Gen AI, and maybe your customer clicks that button, 5, 10, 15 times, when you only expected them to click that generate draft button 1 or 2 times, your expected costs are all over the board depending on the leeway that you give your customers when it comes to Gen AI features. So also for Gen AI providers, it makes their revenue forecasting a lot more volatile. And so these two kind of elements of revenue are kind of this perfect storm of AI infrastructure having cost investors of OpenAI billions and billions of dollars to stand up. And it's also really expensive to maintain the data infrastructure that runs those queries. So unfortunately, while the cost of this infrastructure remains high and they're trying to recoup investment, the revenue models for SaaS businesses are likely to change if you are heavily integrating AI services into your software. So if you are a new business owner, I would say try to bake in the cost of Gen AI features into your pricing before launch. So give yourself some more padding if possible. If you're an existing SaaS business owner, try to cut costs in other areas to account for these variable AI usage costs. And I really want to highlight that because for some businesses, integrating AI has decreased their gross margins by as much as 10%. This is probably on the high end, but if your customers are really using those AI features on a frequent basis, you're really going to want to be keeping an eye on your AI usage costs and building that padding into your margins so that your business can stay afloat, but you are also staying on the cutting edge. Your competitors don't see that you're not integrating AI and you get kind of outcompeted. All right, perfect. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is building a competitive moat. So the way that software companies deploy strategies across their building of the software, their marketing, and their pricing has changed. But why does today's world still feel a lot harder for the everyday business owner? Well, in my opinion, it's because you not only have to keep an eye out on your competitors, but you have to keep an eye out for generative AI technologies, especially everyone's talking about general artificial intelligence. So as models get smarter and AI agents, which AI agents are essentially autonomous bots that can perform tasks on your behalf, so you're not really involved in the task. So as these models continue to get smarter, I still think that there's space for SaaS businesses that differentiate themselves or create a moat in these few different ways. So number one, you need to provide an exceptional experience. So again, customer expectations for software quality are higher than ever. You need to create a tightly coupled human to AI tooling experience in your products. Owning proprietary or contextually based data specific to your category is going to insulate you a bit from your competitors, as well as Gen AI, large companies that don't have your proprietary data. Working in regulated fields that require human involvement, like legal or medical, is a great way to remain competitive. Having a strong existing customer base and reputation is also a really great way to stay afloat while you're kind of figuring out your next moves. And lastly, having some sort of physical world asset that maybe your software is working with is a great way to, again, create that moat between you, your competitors, and generative AI. So from a high level, Gen AI is a really cool technology, but it really complicates the number of variables that you as a business owner have to keep an eye on. All right, so next slide here. All right, so it's never been a better time to start a business, but it's never been harder to compete. I think that Gen AI hasn't killed SaaS, but it has changed what consumers expect and how you need to be distributing your software. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by how quickly Gen AI news and model capabilities are evolving, you are not alone. The good news is that you don't have to reinvent everything in your business all at once. I would say start at one aspect of your business and the most painful part of your business, and start adding AI features and kind of build and iterate from there. Whether you are running your SaaS business right now or you're still in the idea or creation phase, I would say carve out 20 minutes today to fill in that business model canvas, and you can find it by just Googling business model canvas. So fill all the categories out and then highlight or circle the areas of your business that you believe are most under threat with Gen AI changes. And then don't isolate yourself when you're trying to solve, how can you insulate yourself in that respect? But work with your team to come up with strategies to de-risk each of those areas. And then repeat this process every single month. And the reason why I say every month maximum is that Gen AI is changing so quickly that if you reviewed your business model for potential holes or issues more frequently than that, then you are probably going to be so overwhelmed with threats that you don't focus on creating value in your own business. And so as that month goes on, just keep your business model handy. If you read tech news and you learn about a new OpenAI capability that might threaten your business, just note that down for your monthly review. And I would say that this is the best way to stay on top of Gen AI news while transforming that information into actionable results in your business instead of overwhelm and kind of freaking out about the SaaS space. So I hope all of this was helpful to you guys. The next slide here is just my name. If any of you guys want to have one-on-one time talking about your generative AI strategy in your current SaaS business or a business that you're looking to launch, please just reach out to me at sarabeth@sarabeth.ai. And I would love to chat with you guys, no strings attached. So again, I hope this was really helpful. It looks like we have a few minutes. How do you guys want to go about querying these questions in the chat here?
I'm just going to go straight from the top, but thank you so much for this. I mean, I've learned a lot for sure, and I've worked in this general space for a while, so thank you so much.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, so we'll start with the first question. How accurate is Gen AI generally, I guess? And are certain LLMs more accurate? And what are the implications of these LLM operators and the users for inaccurate outputs?
Okay, so how accurate are LLMs?
Yeah.
It really depends on the task, and it depends on the context window that the LLM is trying to reason about. So regardless of the exact version of the model that we're talking about, models still are continuing to hallucinate. The more or the less straightforward the reasoning or the logical kind of connecting the dots between a piece of information that's very far away from another piece of information. So even with, I think it was O3, so OpenAI literally just a few days ago released their new model version. They're calling it O3. And then Google released Gemini 2.5. And so when they first announced these, they said, you know, this is artificial general intelligence. These models are so smart. But then a external vendor actually did an analysis, and these models were still hallucinating, I think around like 33% for a very specific use case. But all that being said, LLMs really do a great job when they have clear instructions, a fairly small context window that they're reasoning about, and knowledge about that specific space. So as a business owner, you can use the LLM's weaknesses to your advantage. So LLMs, you know, don't have that one-to-one input-output. So you can still build your relational database so that there is, you know, a guaranteed input-output relationship for parts of your software, and use LLMs for areas where you need more flexibility or your customer is looking for more flexible output. Another way to de-risk the hallucinations of various LLM models is to use basically, it's called chain of thought. So it's been shown that if you ask the model to think through the problem at a step-by-step basis, it hallucinates less. And so all those things being said, I think that there's still risk that it could give an incorrect answer, and keeping a human in the loop to validate it with the original source, you know, specifically saying, you know, tell me exactly where you found that answer from the context, and then having the human validate it is still the safest way to go about things. I think that was his first question. In terms of some LLMs being better than others, I think that they're all kind of converging to being approximately the same. But people believe that, you know, Claude, which is built by Anthropic, is better at various like scientific or statistical engineering type tasks. And then OpenAI is a little more generalized. So I think that when you're choosing the model that you want to integrate in your SaaS software, you do need to keep in mind the specialties of those models, and then also the pricing. So like I said, the pricing, if you're using a really modern model, the cost per query is much higher than using a model that maybe needs to just summarize something. So maybe you need a something to figure out a really non-straightforward question about your data set. You might use O3. But if you need to just summarize something, you can use one of their turbo models, which are a lot cheaper, still do a really good job, but they don't need to kind of connect the dots between reasoning in a large context. I think I answered two of those questions. I'm not sure what the other questions are.
The last one was, what are the implications of these businesses and the users for inaccurate outputs? But I think you covered that one as well. So
yeah, I would say
we'll move on to the next.
You still need humans in the loop. You still need fail safes.
Yeah, no, I definitely have seen that in my use of AI. It's, where did you get that information? And let me just double check, because that doesn't sound right. And you usually find something off. So human interaction is definitely needed. Next question is, are there concerns, or is there a concern for competing with scams generated by generative AI or outside that the scope?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I have seen that there's been an uptick in scam text messages, scam calls.
Yep.
Really, with every new technology, like bad actors are gonna take a hold of it and take advantage of it. So I've seen that with, text-based scams, phone calls where they're using people's voices to create voice agents and kind of pretend like they're your family member or something. So it really just makes things harder to validate what's real and what's not. So I think consumers need to be really educated about being weary of anything they see online.
Yeah, I mean, in my world, in the world of finance, we've told clients to worry about, if we ever reach out and tell you to give us your bank account number, make sure that there's a reason for that, and don't answer the phone, because they're taking everybody's information. So that was actually one of the questions I had, was, if you're putting up YouTube videos, if you're putting up these things on YouTube, and generative AI is taking that information, what's to stop them from taking that information and using that in a way that's against your purpose of bettering the world, or promoting your product in a safer way? But I mean, that answer's a very difficult one to answer too. So
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no clear-cut way to kind of protect your likeness these days,
yeah,
whether it be voice or video. I think content creators do use like DMCA takedowns very often, and there are tools that scrape mentions of your name. But yeah, I mean, just deep fakes are very prevalent these days. But there's
yeah.
nothing you can do about it. If you're a business owner, you kind of have to put yourself out there and just hope for the best and monitor your online reputation.
Yeah, I mean, regulation isn't very forthcoming at this point, and they were considering regulating it, but now it's kind of just up in the air with what's going on. So, okay, next question. Regarding YouTube, is there more traffic on short or regular videos?
That's a really interesting question. I cannot say for certain, but I do know that YouTube has been pushing shorts to compete with all the other social media platforms. Um, so I would say the play is to create long form content and then use some sort of video editing tool
Snippets,
to
yeah.
snip it. Exactly.
Yeah. I think if I could weigh in that a little bit, it's the same thing. Shorts are good to give burst of information, but you also have the regular videos provide a whole concept, which is why providing a real video and using snippets to bring them into the wider video. I think that there's also an overall challenge in terms of academia and just education overall, where people are trying to decide between short videos and longer videos, because shorter videos reduce our attention span. And, if you're just swiping endlessly, your attention span is just, getting shorter and shorter. And so having that is also a challenge. But, so the world goes with, the advancement of technology.
Yeah.
What's your view on educational SaaS that sells the content to only a specific group of people, where content is most likely the most crucial part of the business?
My thoughts on that. I would say, so my previous company, it's called Carrot, the one that automates software engineering interviews. That was one of their biggest concerns, like 5 years ago, was just data leaks. At one point, we found the interview questions that the team had, spent time crafting, that asked questions about data structures and algorithms and all this stuff. We found copies of that on, Chinese websites, even, years before generative AI was a thing. So I would say that data leaks, kind of like educational content or really any content, is probably going to get leaked. And so the content itself is not really going to keep the business afloat. It's like how you surface that content to your customers. So there needs to be some other value other than just the text itself, whether that's scheduled study sessions or connecting you with a tutor. There needs to be some sort of moat in your business that's not just the content itself.
Almost just a statement, maybe flip SaaS from software as a service to service as a software. I don't think that's a question, but it's a good joke. And then the next one is, do I need to be careful of what information I'm sending to a chatbot? Can that information be leaked or exposed, leading to a security issue?
I would say yes. Especially if you are sharing information about your company. Your company should hopefully have set out like an AI playbook of what to do, what not to do. What not to do is not to tell ChatGPT about your business if you have not paid for, I think it's a Teams plan. And so really the play is to pay for one of these Gen AI tools, because on those paid plans, they don't use the data you're sending to retrain their models. So in that sense, your data is safe when you're talking to the Gen AI that you have a subscription for. But if you don't have a subscription for it, then it's really, really hard to actually delete your data from an LLM's really data hub once it's actually integrated there. They're really not going to retrain or fine tune their model to remove that information once you've sent it to them. So from a personal perspective, choose one LLM. Probably pay for some sort of subscription if you care about your personal information not being used to train the model, and then stick to that. Same thing goes for your business and any of your employees. Make them very aware that anything you say to the LLM, if you're not paying for it, your data is basically paying for their subscription at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know for ChatGPT, you could, if you pay for it, there's a setting that you could turn on that says, please do not include this information. I'm not sure how true that is. I hope it's true because it says it there.
Mhm.
So yeah, but any information you give it to it and it's not, it'll eat up and regurgitate back to others. And then going back to that, sorry, Ram, I misunderstood that. He actually is, they're actually asking maybe flip SaaS from software as a service to service as a software. They're working on that model to flip it, and they want to continue that conversation. I don't know. Have you heard that from your end?
I have heard the concept of service as a software in the context of AI agents being able to automate entire workflows for you. So that's really like the shift that people are saying is going to happen. Um, I think that AI agents for really technical folks are going to be really helpful to automate their workflows, but I'm just not seeing in the next year, I'd say, like AI agents necessarily replace business SaaS software in that respect.
Done. And then as someone with significant software development experience, what role does or what role, I'm sorry, does or did tools like Cursor, Windsurf, or Divine play into your development process? I guess they're asking what, like Cursor, what tools did you use?
Yeah, so I prefer Cursor. For a while, I was a VS Code with Copilot loyalist, but I really think that Cursor um, is the best development or AI baked in development environment these days. I've heard good things about Windsurf, but I think much to what I was saying about kind of keeping the focus on your business, I think find a tool that you like, keep with it, and don't get too distracted by all the different tooling that's out there. For a while, I felt like I was really, really behind because there was all these different tools, especially, coming out to build web apps really quickly. But in the end, they all kind of do the same thing. Um, but I prefer Cursor. I think you can keep an eye out on the landscape and try one or two tools out, every month or so, but constantly switching models or switching tooling because it's the new latest thing is really going to hurt the velocity of like actually building things and driving sales to your business.
Cool. And then I'm gonna do one last question because I don't want to take more of your time. The last question is they're asking, is it worth to invest hardware to set up your own LLM? LLM. Why can't I say this?
I would say no. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to try to compete with the big players with billions of dollars in investment, I think that it's kind of a losing battle. Um, there are some great open source models out there already on Hugging Face that you can, I think, yeah, you can definitely self-host those. So maybe you can self-host an open source model if you want, and host it on your server. But I think that the cost of trying to, um, train your own model and build it or buying your own machines to run that training, um, depending on how large the model is, I don't think it's I don't think it's a good pursuit of money.
Yeah, they're even hemorrhaging money. I don't think any of them have any of them reached profits yet? I don't even know.
No, definitely
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. Yeah. But thank you so much, Sarah Beth. We really appreciate it. We had over 60 people here, around 60 people, so that was great.
Awesome.
And again, if anyone wants to reach out later, please reach out to her and we'll keep in touch.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. All right, have a great Tuesday.
You too. Bye.
Bye.